Hello everybody, we're back again for some more fun in the workshop, talking about bait, and I'd like to thank you all very much for your support, particularly after the podcast that I've done, and thanks to the guys at Calder for that. So had lots of emails, lots of questions, particularly about flavour levels, hook bait levels, people starting to get out on the bank now, go fishing, having a good time. So they're using all the mixes they've lovingly made at home, and thanks for that. Also, there's quite a series of articles that I feel duty bound to mention the great support I've had from Carpology magazine. I'm on about my 4th or 5th article, and the next one is coming out in the April issue of Carpology magazine, which I think you can also view online, and it's called Flavours, Myth or Magic. That's my name for the article. It's a big article. It's going to answer lots of questions that people have been asking me, and I thought I'd mention that because Carpology Mag have been very supportive, and I will be doing some full-blown film clips with them soon. We're booked in to do that on their YouTube channel, so it'll be a separate lot of videos coming up soon in the early summer. I also feel that I really must thank all the 2 major retailers who sell my products. Obviously it's very limited distribution, and those two major retailers are Yateley Angling Centre, who I've been dealing with for well over 26 years, and Ruth at Yateley and all the team at Yateley have been very supportive. I know they've been working their socks off down there, so thanks to them, and also to Johnson Ross in Hertfordshire, in Hoddesdon. They've been very supportive too. They're all working hard. They've had their ups and downs with COVID, and as indeed we all have, but thanks to both of those guys for your support. Had lots of questions about what flavours are coming out next. Obviously the peach, I'm sorry guys, is delayed. It's still delayed due to getting some raw materials, guess where, from Europe. These are complex aroma chemicals which need to go in the recipe. There's 36 ingredients in the recipe, and I'm about 3 short, so we're just waiting for those last few ingredients to come, and we'll make the first batch. So peach is probably due out sometime in late April, early May. The ones that are out, I'm pleased to say, are these 2 essential oil blends, which lots of you have been asking about. These are blends of oleo resins, which are natural extracts derived from seeds and bark, leaves, that sort of thing, and essential oils, so pure essential oils. The hot masala oil is one of the ones that goes into the chicken tikka flavour at 50%. This is a sort of authentic Indian spice with cumin, black pepper, very expensive cardamom oil, garlic, allspice, clove. A whole host of different things go into that, and it's really, really authentic and hot. So you can mix that with any other oil-based flavour too. The other one is called Cajun spice oil. That one is a bit of a hint of the sort of pepperoni, Caribbean, Cajun spice, the sort of thing you get in jambalaya, that sort of thing. So it's got jalapeno pepper, paprika, cayenne, garlic, onion, so a completely different blend, particularly good for barbel, but both of these brilliant for carp or barbel. And again, being oil based, both of them can be mixed with any of my other oil based flavours. So you can mix them with ala solar, ASN, musk spice, the sizz, and create your own blend at home. This is quite important because the whole fun about making your own baits from base mix that I've made lovingly up here for you is mainly because you can be in control. And I do say this on my website, there's nothing better than knowing what bait you're using. I'm quite happy to disclose all the main ingredients that go into my mixes, and I will be doing so later on in this video clip. So there's no secrets or mystery about all this. It's good quality mix. All the nutrients that carp require or barbel require are in these mixes. Sometimes there's 16 or 17 ingredients all blended together, and this will give the fish the nutrients that they require, and hopefully stand head and shoulders above other more basic baits, particularly pellets and particularly sport mix, particles, that sort of thing. So you don't need much of these quality of baits when you're actually fishing, because all the ingredients are providing the fish with a complete diet. So it's a bit of a fallacy that you need to establish a bait. If the recipe is good, it doesn't need establishing at all. They'll eat it straight away. So no pre-baiting required, but there is a requirement for you guys to use your spare time, if you don't mind me saying so, and get out with a marker rod or a deeper ball, find out what's going on the lake bed, where the weed is, where the drop-offs are, do some research, make some notes on some favourite swims, measure the wraps, do whatever you're going to do to check what, if you can't get one particular swim, what's the lake bed like in another swim, and then you can apply small quantities of bait when you're actually fishing there. Again, you don't need to sneak over there in the evening to your local lake and bait up. It does help if you can do that, but you don't need to. So I will go into the details on the base mix later. One of the questions that keeps coming up, so it's a multiple question, is boiling times. How long to boil 3 offerings for? Obviously that's going to vary whether you're using long range baits, so perhaps you boil them, dry them a little bit longer, and short-term baits, chop ups, all that. So I will cover that later on in this clip. Boiling times are critical to the base mix, because base mixes will vary in their content, in their oil content, the makeup of the different ingredients that are in them, and some base mixes will boil harder in shorter boiling times, and the shorter the boiling time, the less of the nutrition is boiled out of the bait. And that's really important for obvious reasons. You want the fish to get the maximum nutrition for the bait, therefore you want to be boiling it for as short a time as possible. So I think this pretty much concludes the initial part of this video. I've cracked 6 eggs into a bowl here. I'm only going to do a 6 egg mix, and we're going to use a flavour blend here, which I think we'll use one of these new essential oils, and we'll blend it with masala, because this sort of recipe has never been discussed before, particularly on a YouTube channel. So you'll see what type of profile. Obviously you can't smell it, but I can, and I'll describe what sort of profile we get out of this bait when we make it. So I'll see you in a second, and we'll have a change round, and I'll show you my setup for flatbed rolling, short amounts, small amounts of boilies. See you in a minute. So the next stage of the rolling process and the making bait process is going to be to actually use these 6 eggs that I cracked into a bowl earlier on, 6 large eggs. And but before we go any further with this, you can see by my shoulder here is a load of flatbed gardener rolling tables already mounted on pieces of thick plywood, and they've all got little holes in the corner, so you can change any size of table you want to make any size of bait you want. And I just made all these at home myself. I'm not a qualified carpenter, I just quietly thought about it, and you'll see when we come to rolling how I've set them up on the flatbed table. So we'll just put this to one side for a minute while we discuss the time it takes to do all this and the setting up. So once you've done all this, it's really worth getting together. If you invest in this sort of setup, it's worth getting together with a few friends and making your bait together. It's always worth doing that, and it's also quite good fun. So we'll move on to the base mix now, straight away. This is the one I'm using. This is Taste, and Taste is a completely different type of mix, not a fish meal. It relies on milk proteins and autolyzed yeasts, cheese extracts, cheese powders, milk proteins, cereals, bird foods, ground, partly ground, and whey protein concentrate as a hardening agent. It's got 3 different types of yeast in it, all from Saccharomyces cerevisiae. You can look that up on the internet. It's a standard yeast product, but it's the way it's autolyzed and the cell wall is split, and you get this wonderful yeasty, savoury, umami type of taste. So there's about 16 ingredients go into taste, and it comes out into this lovely light brown, gravel brown colour. The seeds and texture hold the bait together quite well. It's a multifunctional bait, so you can use it all year round, and it's good for barbel and good for carp. It was originally designed for carp, and I tried it for barbel. It was phenomenal. So it's the profile. What is it? It tastes very savoury. It tastes a bit like a snack food, that sort of thing. Probably, I would say, after bio shellfish, and as a complete alternative to providing fish with an ocean protein derived bait, I would say it's probably one of the best base mixes that I've ever designed. I would say that, wouldn't I? But it is a good mix, and it's different. So you can sit behind the rods with boilies made from taste, knowing that it's a very unusual profile, and certainly you're giving the fish a different type of nutrition. So I've explained about these trays. It will all come clear in a minute when we make the paste and load up the gun and start to extrude out the sausages onto these. So I'm just going to take these away, and I'm going to do that right now. Did you hear that crash? If we were making up a larger amount of bait, you can see in the background here a Hobart mixer. This is just a small benchtop mixer, and I'll be using that for making up to 30 or 36 eggs at a time. Obviously that makes quite a lot of bait, so for this I'm doing a home amount, which is 6 eggs, and you just need your hands for making the paste to do that. So we won't be using the Hobart mixer today because we don't need to. So the recipe, bearing in mind, it's just the base mix. It's no other additives at all other than these 2. I'm going to use ala salar because I know it works in this mix, and I'm going to use this hot masala oil. So the recipe for 6 eggs, when I haven't got it all over my hands, put the glasses on, is going to be 1.5 ml. So there's 1 ml. You can see it's quite red. All the oleoresins make it really a deep red colour. That's paprika as well in there, which is doing that. 1.5 ml. Just clean that syringe off. Put the lid back on, endeavouring not to spill it. It smells lovely already, actually. You can already see it's really quite a deep red colour. Fantastic. Smells like I'm in an Indian restaurant. About 10 times over. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the same amount of ala salar to the mix. So that's 1.5 ml. So to a 6 egg, large egg mix, we're putting 1.5 ml of hot masala oil and 1.5 ml of ala salar. That's in there. So we'll mix that round. It's not going to take long. Now, people talk about oil-based flavours needing to be emulsified. They don't need to be emulsified. Just use it all naturally as it comes out of the bottle, be absolutely fine. One of the interesting things about food technology is that eggs are actually an emulsifier. If you mix the right ingredients together, oils and eggs together, you get mayonnaise. It doesn't separate. That's because the eggs have emulsified the oil. And a similar thing happens when you mix oils with eggs. You've obviously got to be careful not to mix them too much, otherwise you'll get a weird sort of air process going into the mix and the boilies will come out full of air. So you just need to be a bit careful, but there will be a small reaction taking place where the eggs are acting as an emulsifier for the oils. So that's pretty much all we need to do to mix that all together. And I'm now going to start adding, just dry my hands up a bit there, I'm going to start adding the base mix, which I'm not going to weigh, I'm going to do it by feel. It's going to be probably somewhere around 500 grams. So we'll put some in to begin with. Use the same fork. So 6 eggs will make a decent amount of bait, certainly enough for a session. And we will weigh this when it's all boiled. We'll weigh it and see how much we've got out of the mix. Be quite interesting. I don't think I've ever weighed exactly a 6-egg mix before. It's coming together really well. So you get the general idea of this. I'm going to pause the camera now for a moment whilst I just complete this, and then we'll be loading the gun, firing up the compressor, making sure the water's boiling, getting the drying rack ready, and getting everything ready to extrude the bait and make boilies. See you in a second. So now we're over onto the table side of the workshop, and you can see straight away how I've mounted this with a couple of wing nuts here, and this is on a hinge mechanism. So you can keep the same bed of the table, which is just made up at a low height, so you don't want to be up here rolling boilies, you want to be down at a sensible level. And these tables are just interchangeable. This one is a 16mm, and as I say, here are the little wing nuts at the side. What I've made is a tray. Again, I made all this myself with a little lift out section here, so you can tip the boilies into the wire basket when you're boiling them. And I've put a very light dusting of maize flour in the bottom of the tray here. And in addition, what I will do is I will put a very light dusting just initially on top. You can see it going onto the table here. I'm going to put a very light dusting of maize flour on this mix so it doesn't stick initially to the rollers. When you're making a bigger batch of bait and you have lots of paste to get through, the mix will probably start to harden off and you don't need to put any of this powder on. But very often when you're doing a small mix, and if you have problems with the boilies sticking to the rolling table, it isn't a good idea to add mixing oil. I don't agree with that tactic. Much better to put just a light dusting of maize flour, cheap as chips, stick it on the top, and it will help the boilies not stick to each other, but also more importantly, not stick to the top of the table. And then you can just pick them up, and I have a brush them off, or they just fall off into the tray. So you can see up here we've got a little range of nozzles, different size nozzles. So initially they come like this, and you have to cut them exactly to the right size. The nozzle that I've put onto this gun is a 16mm because it's a 16mm table, and as a rule of thumb you need to cut the nozzle to be just so it fits inside the grooves of the table. So the nozzle needs to be smaller than the boilies that you're ultimately going to make, because as the base mix paste is extruded out of the end of the nozzle, it expands. So we can probably just go straight ahead and extrude all this. So we'll do it now. Here we go. I'm going to do 2 sausages at a time. They just need seating neatly on the top of the roller. Look at that, lovely. You always get a few misshapen ones, which I can't get out of the habit. I roll them and put them in the tray. Why waste a good base mix? And so there they are, all ready to go in. One of the good things as well that you get with these flatbed tables is if you get the nozzles exactly right and you get the consistency of the mix exactly right, you can make some really round baits. So all you guys that have invested in machines that roll bait automatically, you'll know how important it is to get the consistency of the mix right and the size of the nozzle right, because each nozzle has to be calibrated for each different base mix sometimes. And this method is absolutely tried and tested. I've been using this setup now for 20 years. It works. So we'll crack on. It won't take long to do a 6-egg mix. You can just hear in the background the compressor kicking in. Now, I think this mix is probably just a little bit sticky. So another little trick you can do is you've put the sausages actually on the table, and you can actually just put a touch of plain maize flour over the top of the sausage. Again, that helps to stop the boilies sticking. Straight off, no problem. One of the things about doing this is it makes you want to go fishing. There we go. So it's quite surprising how quick, once you're set up, how quick it is to make a 6-egg mix. If you've got all this ready, and you can be a bit flash and do 3 sausages at a time. But if you've got all this ready and it's permanently set up like I've got it set up here, it really doesn't take long at all to knock up a quick mix. And these little bits that have fallen by the wayside, all these misshapen pieces, I'll put them all in and they're all boil up fine. And when you're doing this, you can make a couple of big baits, you can fiddle around with your hands, make all something separate. I think this is a seriously good part of the fun, and I would really recommend that if anyone has not tried this before, you can buy smaller tables. Gardener do a smaller table than this. If you haven't tried this tactic, it will really boost your confidence levels. So we'll just pause the camera for the moment and I'll see you in a second. Okay guys, so they're all rolled. I'll slide this tray out. Follow me, William, and we will go and boil them. And you can see down here the water's boiling away in a small saucepan. It's only a 6-egg mix. If I was doing serious boilies, I'd be using this beauty with a great big wire tray. This is a commercial stainless steel cauldron, but we're fine with these. I'm not going to take this little slide out, I'm not going to put the whole 6 eggs in this small thing at one time because they'll go off the boil. I'll probably just put about half of them in. Okay, so you can see these are a proper rolling boil. I'm going to boil these, just for a minute and a quarter, 16mm boilies. They'll be absolutely fine, and then you can get them out on a throwing stick. Put those to one side. See that with this big boiler, the water is not going off the boil. There's still some agitation in the water. After about 30 seconds, they'll start to begin to become semi-buoyant in the water, and they'll start to float to the surface. Give them about another 45 seconds after that, and they'll all be cooked. This smells like an Indian meal. So there we go. Finished. They're all floating. Tip those in there, and I'll just explain. These are the trays I make. They've each got little brackets at the corner. You can buy this mesh online, stainless steel mesh or galvanized mesh, either or. I think this is just a galvanized mesh. It's often used for making bird cages and that sort of thing in the garden, or pet houses, rabbit houses, that sort of thing. And I've made quite a few of these, so when I'm doing a big batch in this big cauldron, I can stack them up on top of each other. And the most important thing is, don't forget, if you've got pets, dogs or cats, they love boilies. So if you're drying your boilies outside, make sure they're not in the sun, no direct sunlight, so somewhere in the shade, a well ventilated area, away from the rain, so somewhere under cover. And then when they've been outside for a while, it's a nice day today, you can take them indoors and you should air dry free offerings and hook baits overnight. So we'll take these inside now. We'll switch the camera off and I'll just do a final bit in a second or two. See you in a minute. Okay, so about 5 minutes ago we boiled these, so they're quite damp still. They will need to air dry obviously overnight. Just purely out of interest, what I'm going to do is weigh them. They will be lighter when they've been air drying all night. But before we do that, obviously I've got to clean out the gun. I'm not going to do that on the camera, but there's still a bit of paste left in here. And let's not waste it. So I've disconnected this from the compressor. And in here is a cracking bit of paste, which I'll get out with a tool fit for the purpose. And this paste, just this little piece that's from the end, poke this bit out as well. Look. My father used to say, waste not, want not. So here's a piece of lovely paste. What I would do with that is I would put that in a bit of cling film and freeze it. Probably break it in half. So there's two pieces about the size of a golf ball. And I would take, for an evening session or even a night session, this mix with me, made fresh. So after it's air dried, go fishing or put it in the fridge for a week or freeze it. And one of these, so that I can then take a tiny thin piece of this lovely paste off, take a boilie and wrap the paste around the boilie from the same mix. Absolutely deadly tactic. You don't need any dips, glugs, nothing like that, because they're getting all the signals of the base mix from the boilie itself and from the paste as it breaks down in the water. You can't get anything better than that. So we'll weigh these, just scoop these up. They're still a bit warm. And we'll just see how many we've got for roughly a 6 egg mix. Okay, so if you put the paste in there as well, it's 1 kilo. So it'll be slightly under 1 kilo when it's air dried. If you're making more and more bait, you'll soon get to grips with the amount you need for a session. I'll tip these back in the tray. All this that we're doing now on this clip and everything that I've done over the last few months is going to seem like a lot of trouble to people that haven't done this before. There will also be an awful lot of people who have done this before and they've put all their kit up in the loft or in the garage and they've just bought something from somebody else, which is fine, or they've relied on other people making their bait for them, which is also absolutely fine. But there is absolutely, in my opinion, nothing to beat making it yourself. You can put any little twist on the recipe that you like, and you can vary the recipe. For example, perhaps you get an invitation from a friend and he says, oh, come and fish as a guest, come and fish my syndicate lake. It's only 4 acres, it's only 3 acres. And what you've got before you started doing all this is 1 bag of rock hard boilies, all the same size, not very versatile. Knowing that you are going to go and fish in a little 3 acre lake or a 4 acre lake where everything is at catapult range or hand thrown in the margins, you can tailor make your mix specifically for that guest ticket session and make a softer bait, a smaller bait. You can use a small table, you can make chop ups by hand, you can do a load of great big baits. If there's loads of roach and rudd there causing a problem, you can make bigger baits. So you've got the complete versatility to do anything you want because you've got all the ingredients at your hand to make the bait that suits the session. Conversely, you get an invitation or you've got a club ticket for a lake that's got a lot of long range fishing in it, 100 yards plus, then you're going to need 18 to 20 mil boilies. And if you can't use a bait boat, which I don't agree with anyway, but good luck to those that do, you have to use a throwing stick to get your bait out, or maybe a spod, and certainly you're going to need a decent sized bait that's hard and that won't explode out of the throwing stick. So again, when it comes to your serious sessions and your long range fishing, you can adapt and change the recipe yourself at home and create your own long range mix. In addition, there's something else you can do. And Frank Warwick wrote about this actually in his book, which I'm nearly finished reading. It's called Every Bit of Blue. It's a great book. So thanks for sending me a copy, Frank. And what he said is that he uses all sorts of different density and buoyancy baits as freebies. So it confuses the carp and they vary their suction as they pick these up. Now this is something that people like Frank, who's a wily old dog, and certainly me, I don't know whether I'm as wily as Frank, but certainly I've been doing this trick for a long time and I had no idea Frank was doing it. So what I do is I use several different sizes of bait. So I don't bother too much about the buoyancy. I use the same base mix, but I'll often go fishing on a weekend with 2 to 3 different size baits, all made from the same recipe. So as the fish come across the bait, 1 minute they're sucking up a 12mm boilie, next minute they're sucking up a 16mm boilie, next minute they're sucking up a 20mm boilie. That is a deadly tactic. But that's quite difficult to achieve if somebody else is making your bait for you. If you're at home and you can make bait yourself, all you need to do is quickly change the rolling table, put a different size nozzle in, and extrude a different size boilie out. Certainly taking 2 different size baits with you at any one time is well worth it. So I think that just about winds up this section on making free offerings, making bait at home. I've mentioned a couple of the new products. Have a look at the website, have a look at the back clips, go back to the previous clips I've done on YouTube, they're all on the website. And there's a lot of information hidden in about all those clips, worth listening to, particularly the amount of flavour you use. Don't use too much, guys, less is best. And the amount of time you boil your bait for. So there's a big clock on the wall, or you can get a digital timer, or use your phone. But write everything down that you do, have a go at making bait at home, good luck, and if you like all this, subscribe to it, and tell your friends, and catch a few fish, because I'm now expecting, when the lakes open up and the lockdown finishes, people to start really catching some good fish. So good luck to everybody, and I'll see you next time.